Tinubu has broken the jinx of failed road contracts in the southeast. He also expressed satisfaction with the contractors handling the Enugu-Onitsha road for doing a good job. The minister spoke at the weekend as he unveiled engineering standards, street deadlines, and new technology to secure highways across the region. He addressed reporters in Enugu after an extensive inspection tour of major federal road and bridge projects across the southeast and south region. Umar said the federal government had placed a nationwide ban on all forms of mining activities within a 10-kilometer radius of bridges as part of measures to safeguard critical infrastructures and enhance safety on highways. The minister said that the ban followed an approval of the Federal Executive Council, stressing that enforcement mechanisms, including water patrols, will be deployed to ensure compliance, particularly around major bridges. In line with the Federal Executive Council's directive, there will be no mining for any sort within 10-kilometer radius of bridge nationwide. If you are interested in that story, you'll find the details in the Nation newspaper.
Still talking politics here. INC protests over Fubara impeachment plot. The Ijaw National Congress says the people of Rivers State are against the impeachment of Governor Siminalayi Fubara, warning the State Assembly loyal to ex-Governor Nyesom Wike to share the plan. Similarly, the Rivers State Elders and Leaders Council strongly condemned the Martin Amewule-led State House of Assembly over its ongoing impeachment proceedings against Governor Fubara and his deputy, Professor Ngozi Odu. The groups warned that the move is likely to fail, and accused the lawmakers of pursuing selfish interests under the guise of constitutional procedure. The INC described the impeachment as an excuse to perform exercise in futility, criticizing lawmakers, particularly those of the joy extraction, who publicly supported the process despite Fubara being one of their own. In a telephone interview, INC President Professor Benjamin Okaba said the actions of some assembly members amounted to betrayal. It is not about the growth of democracy and development, it's about political personal interest, about the interest of the state, he said. He criticized 4 lawmakers who initially withdrew from the impeachment process only to reverse their position within 48 hours, saying it reflects a lack of principles. Details in the Punch newspaper this morning.
Still on governance, and this one coming from the National Assembly arena. Electoral Act will be ready for 2027, says Akpabio's advisor, Ubani. The special advisor to Senate President Godswill Akpabio and Senate Senior Advocate of Nigeria, SAN, Dr. Monday Ubani, has expressed confidence that ongoing amendments to the Electoral Act will be completed in time for the 2027 general elections. He affirmed that Nigeria possesses the institutional capacity to conduct credible elections without external interference, emphasizing that political will and a strengthened legal framework are what is needed. Speaking during an interactive section with reporters, Ubani noted that the proposed electoral bill is expected to be passed by the National Assembly and assented to by the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The House of Representatives has passed their version. What Nigeria are waiting for now is the Senate. They were supposed to consider it before the break. Once they resume, they will certainly pass it, Ubani said. He stressed that early passage of the law is critical so that all electoral stakeholders clearly understand the rules guiding the process well ahead of the polls. If you are interested in the details, check the Nation newspaper.
All right, so I guess politics is what's really coming handy for me here today. Let's check this. APC rules out automatic tickets for defecting governors. Top leaders of the All Progressives Congress, APC, have ruled out the granting of automatic tickets to governors, including Akwa Ibom State Governor Umo Eno, Taraba State Governor Agbo Kevas, and the Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara, who joined the party recently, as well as Kano State Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf, who is expected to join soon. A member of the APC National Working Committee, NWC, who spoke on condition of anonymity because he was not authorized to comment on the issue, explained that defection from another political party to the APC does not guarantee an automatic ticket Supporting this position, the APC Director of Publicity, Bala Ibrahim, in an exclusive interview, described the ruling party as democratic and progressive, stressing that all members will be allowed to fully enjoy and exercise their rights. Reacting, the National Publicity Secretaries of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Ini Menebon, and the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Oladipo Johnson, said the development was expected, adding that the governors involved had made the wrong decisions. Among the PDP governors who have defected to the APC are Umo Eno of Akwa Ibom State, Sharif Oborevori of Delta State, Peter Mba of Enugu State, Abu Kefas of Taraba State, and most recently Siminalayi Fubara of Rivers State. The APC leadership in Kano State has also indicated that the defection of the state governor is imminent. Beyond the governors, several other prominent politicians, including members of the National Assembly and state houses of assembly, as well as former governors, former ministers, and other party leaders, have also defected from the PDP to the APC. Check details in the Punch newspaper of this morning.
Okay, state telling the storylines of politics now coming from the opposition party. Hashing PDP will win next year election despite local intrigues. A presidential aspirant on the platform of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Dr. Benga Hashim, has said that the party will win next year's general election despite the legal tussles among its members. He said the PDP will dislodge the ruling All Progressive Congress, APC, from power in general election. The businessman turned politicians insisted that no legal or administrative maneuvers can derail Nigeria's multi-party democracy. Hashim, a long-standing figure in Nigeria's pro-democracy movement, alleged that the ruling APC is engaging in legal and institutional actions aimed at weakening opposition participation ahead of the next election cycle. He described the situation as part of a broader pattern that raises serious concern among the future of democratic competition in the country. According to him, such developments mirror past attempts to undermine political pluralism in Nigeria. As him said, such efforts were ultimately defeated by the collective will of the people. We have traveled this road before under Abacha dictatorship, and it has ended in victory for the forces of genuine democracy, while the plotters of one-man rule were disgraced, Hashim stated. Details you find in the Nation newspaper.
2027, my re-election unstoppable, Oti tells Osrc Kalu. Abia State's Governor Alex Oti has warned that no individual or group can distract his administration with 2027 elections, saying he is focused on delivering development for the state. Oti made the statement on Saturday at the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Umuika District Headquarters, Izelangwa South Local Government Area, while attending worship with his wife, Priscilla Chidinma. Quote, I am not supported about 2027. The same God who said to 2023, we also said to 2027, he said. If our Diocese government will continue to do the right thing, not to mind the attacks by the opposition, no one or group of people, whoever they are, is entitled to distract us. So when they make noise, like I said last week, we should not be bothered. We should just remain focused and do what we have to do, Oti said. Oti and three former governors of the state, Osrc Kalu, Theodore Orji, and Okeze Ikpeazu, have in recent times been in a war of words, with Kalu vowing to stop Oti's re-election in 2027. Oti, addressing concerns about political attacks, says, sometimes some worry if it is the 2027 election they are talking about, or maybe there's another election coming up. But the same way God delivered me in 2023, that is the same way he will deliver me in 2027. End of quote. Last week, the state government, through the governor's special advisor on policies and interventions, Reverend Father Christian Anokuru, warned opposition figures against attempting to pit Oti against President Bola Tinubu. Details in the Punch newspaper of this morning.
Okay, moving from the Nation newspaper now, we move to the Guardian. Shettima arrives Switzerland for 56th World Economic Forum. The Vice President, Senator Kashif Shettima, on Sunday arrived in the airport town of Davos, Switzerland, to lead the Nigerian delegation at the 56th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, scheduled to be held from January 19 to 23, 2026. The Vice President arrived from Conakry, Guinea, where he represented President Bola Tinubu at the presidential inauguration of President Mamadi Damboya on Saturday. He was received on arrival by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tuga, and the Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Uduwole, and officials of the Nigerian mission in Switzerland. 2026 WEF marks a milestone in Nigeria global economic diplomacy with the official debut of Nigeria House Davos. For the first time, the federal government has established a dedicated sovereign pavilion on the Davos promenade. This facility, a product of successful public-private partnership (PPP), will serve as a permanent hub for high-level ministerial engagement, investment roundtables, and cultural diplomacy throughout the week. Shettima will present Nigeria's 2026 economic outlook to the world's most influential political and business leader as he participates in key plenary sections focusing on responsible deployment of artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and biotechnology. Throughout the week, we will hold bilateral meetings with head of state, top executives from multinational corporations, and leaders of international development finance institutions to deepen partnership that align with the renewed agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. For details, check the Guardian newspaper.
The National Youth Service Corps (NYSC) has released the deployment details for its 2026 Batch A Stream 1 prospective corps members, confirming that call-up letters are now available. The scheme announced these on Monday via its official X handle, stating that some prospective corps members posted to Lagos State and the Federal Capital Territory will undergo their orientation programs in neighboring states. Some prospective corps members deployed to Lagos will have the orientation course in Ekiti, Kwara, Ondo, Ogun, and Osun camps, while some deployed to FCT will be in Kaduna, Niger, and Nasarawa camps, the NYSC said. The deployment details was also what follows earlier reports by newspapers in which the scheme explained that camp capacity limitations informed the decision. The NYSC had said that only about 40% of registered prospective corps members can be accommodated for the upcoming orientation program. The scheme also issued a travel advisory to prospective corps members, stressing that prospective corps members are advised not to travel at night to the orientation camp. Details in the Punch newspaper of this morning.
Okay, let's check for update from Rivers State now. And legal hurdles, Assembly silenced deepening Rivers impeachment uncertainty. With the riders, I remain governor despite impeachment move. Fubara insists. Legal group asks CJ to step aside from impeachment process. Ijaw groups urges APC to protect governor from impeachment. Wike absent as Tinubu returns to Abuja from Abu Dhabi trip. Rivers State political crisis appears to be entering a statement as legal challenges to impeachment notice, silence from the House of Assembly, and the judiciary complication raises doubt over the visibility and timing of efforts to remove Governor Fubara from office. Against this backdrop, Fubara has projected control and normalcy, dismissing his impeachment notice as a love letter. The Assembly had remained silent days after confirming that the Chief Justice of the state received an acknowledged official correspondence conveying notice of alleged gross misconduct against Governor Fubara and his deputy, Ngozi Odu. The Guardian learns that Odu has approached the court to challenge claims that she was duly served with the notice of allegation. Recall that following the Assembly sittings on January 8, notices of allegation against the governor and his deputy surfaced on social media, triggering widespread controversy. However, legal experts have faulted the mode of service, insisting that such notice must be personally served and except where a court grants approval for substituted service after being satisfied with the personal service impracticable, and legal practitioner Living Jamala said failure to properly serve impeachment notice renders subsequent steps procedurally defective. For details, you check the Guardian newspaper.
Kebbi man arrested for allegedly killing wife. The Kebbi State Police Command has arrested Sule Gomo, the man accused of killing his wife, Umaima Maidawa, in an alleged case of domestic violence that has shaken the Bayawa community in the Ogi local government area of Kebbi State. The incident occurred on January 13, 2026, when Gomo reportedly struck his 25-year-old wife with a wooden handle of a hoe during a domestic dispute at their residence in Bayawa. Umayama, according to the police, was confirmed dead shortly after the attack, prompting a swift investigation by security agencies. Days after the killing, Gomo fled Bayawa but was eventually tracked down and apprehended on Saturday in Katami Town, Silame local government area of Sokoto State, following a directive by the chairman of Ogi local government, Yahya Ogi, ordering security agencies to ensure the suspect's immediate arrest. It was gathered that the operation, jointly executed by the Nigeria Police and the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, brought an end to the manhunt that spanned Sokoto and Kebbi States. Details in the Punch newspaper of this morning.
Okay, we take this sporting story now. Mosepe reject acquisition of FIFA influence on CAF decision, and I believe that has to do with the just concluded African Cup of Nations. The Confederation of African Football CAF could have done a better job of explaining its decision to move the African Cup of Nations from every 2 to 4 years, but was standing by it. The organization president Patrick Mosepe said on Saturday, report Reuters. The decision was announced last month and drew every criticism, with several African football personalities alleging it was a measure forced upon Africa by FIFA, whose president Gianni Infantino at 6 years ago advocated that the Cup of Nations be played 4 yearly rather than every 2 years. Mosepe rejected the assertion of undue influence from Zurich and said they will go ahead with the Cup of Nations every 4 years after 2028, plus introduce an African Nations League in 2029. We didn't do a good job at CAF in preparing the ground for this AFCON for every 4 years, but we must make sure that everyday people whom we account to must understand that what we have done is good for them. Mosepe told a press conference on the eve of the final between Morocco and Senegal in Rabat. For details, check the Guardian newspaper.
Alright, with that we place a wrap on a check on stories making the headlines in the national dailies this morning. Do check details of those stories and many more in the Guardian newspaper, the Nigerian Tribune, the Nation newspaper, and the Punch newspaper. Of course, we'll go on our first break this morning. When we return, it's time for the conversation on topical issues that we've highlighted, from the education sector to the legal perspective on the rule of law. We'll be right back, everyone. Please stay with us.
Michael Adekunle Ajashin, born November 28, 1908, was a distinguished Nigerian educator, politician and statesman renowned for his integrity, commitment to democracy, and transformative impact on education in Nigeria. Born in Owo, present-day Ondo State, Ajashi began his education at St. Andrew's College, Oyo, from 1924 to 1927, where he trained as a teacher. He furthered his studies at Fowler Bay College in Sierra Leone, earning a Bachelor of Arts degree in English, Modern History and Economics in 1946. He then obtained a postgraduate diploma in education from the University of London in 1947. Ajashin's career in education appointment as principal of Imadi College in Owo in 1947. He was instrumental in staff development, encouraging teachers to pursue further training at institutions like University College Ibadan. In 1963, he founded Owo High School, serving as the first principal until his retirement in 1975. Ajashin's political journey began in the 1950s as a founding member and national vice president of the Action Group, advocating for policies such as free education, universal health care, and Nigeria's immediate independence. He served as a federal legislator from 1954 to 1966. In 1979, he was elected governor of Ondo State under the Unity Party of Nigeria (UPN), with Akin Omoboriwo as his deputy. His administration prioritized education, establishing the Ondo State University in 1982, now Ekiti State University, and the Polytechnic Owo. In the 1983 elections, Ajashin was initially declared the loser amid allegations of electoral malpractice. However, the Supreme Court later reinstated him, affirming his victory. His tenure was cut short by the military coup on 31 December 1983. In 1939, Ajashin married Babafunke Tenabe, a fellow educator. They had 4 children, including Olajumoke Anifowoshi, who later served as Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Ondo State. Ajashin's commitment to democracy was evident in the 1990s when he became a leading figure in the National Democratic Coalition, NADECO, advocating for the restoration of democracy and the recognition of MKO Abiola's electoral mandate. His activism led to his arrest in 1995 under General Sani Abacha's regime. In recognition of his contributions, Ondo State University was renamed Adekunle Ajasin University in 2000. His governance style, marked by simplicity and incorruptibility, remains a benchmark in Nigerian politics, as he once stated, and I quote, "I came into office in October 1979 with a set of my own rich native dresses and left office in December 1983 with the same set of dresses. No addition, no subtraction." His legacies continue to linger in memories, generation after generation.
Welcome back, everyone. Our first conversation this morning will be centering on quality assurance in the education sector. And joining us as a follow-up to the conversation we actually had last Thursday will be the Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology, Professor Ibekele Ajibefo. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you.
You see, I said it's a continuation of the conversation we had on Thursday.
Yes.
We started the conversation on the issue of quality assurance, compliance, and adherence to standards in the education sector of Ondo State. Well, I do understand that, just like you said on the program last Thursday, that St. Louis School, Ondo, has been reopened. I'd like to know, between then and now, have you been able to also take a look at the level of compliance to the agreed solutions to the quagmire that led to the closure of that school?
Okay, thank you very much. Once again, I want to thank you for this invitation once again. The Ministry of Education, Science and Technology met with leadership of St. Leo Nursery and Primary School together with the representative of Ondo Diocese of Catholic Church. Yes, and we all agreed on the point that the head of the school must comply with the regulatory provisions and requirements for running their schools. And we monitored the situation after that meeting. The school had fully complied, and the administrative secretary in the ministry will also be going to Ondo this morning to meet with all the stakeholders, to meet with the PTA, to meet with the school leadership and the students to assure them that such will not happen again.
Yes. I know that's not the only school that is not complying with the administrative procedures of operating private schools in Ondo State. And that, to a large extent, places a burden, as it were, on the monitoring and evaluation unit of your ministry. How well are you really pinpointing the compliance level among private schools in Ondo State to the standard set by government?
Thank you very much. In August last year, we met with all the stakeholders, private school owners, the principals and leadership of private schools last year, and we re-emphasized the regulatory provisions in running schools in Ondo State, particularly private schools. And we noted that some of the regulatory provisions are violated by these private schools, and we gave them up to a time within which to comply fully. And
if you permit me to match your tongue,
yes.
What are the three key procedures that are being flouted by these private schools?
Okay, number one, yes, the major ones. Many of the private schools, they are not documented. We don't have data about them. We don't have information about student population. We don't have information about their locations and so on and so forth. So last year, we required all private schools, even including public schools, to upload their basic data into the digital portal of the Ministry of Education.
You don't have information?
Yes.
Their documentation?
Yes,
they are proved their existence in the first place?
In fact, many of the schools are unapproved.
And they exist?
And they are existing.
Whose fault?
I don't want to apportion blame. My own is that we want to resolve all outstanding issues, all the violations. We want to address them, and these problems have been on for a long time. So most of the private schools, they are very comfortable with that because they escape tax. They don't pay tax, although they might be paying some illegal monies into some private pockets, but that is not good enough. We want to document them. We want to have data on their students. For instance, a student that's supposed to be in SS1 writing WAEC, which
is might be paying some money into illegal private pockets. That signals saboteurs in your ministry.
Yes.
Have you been able to investigate this?
Yeah, we are looking.
You should investigate.
We are looking into everything. In fact, we have decided to put on hold approval for new schools. So all the applications that we received since October last year, I put them on hold. I will personally lead the team to really check those schools so that we know that they meet the basic minimum requirements. And for the existing one, those schools with approval, we also check their conditions. So we have a comprehensive plan this year, yes, to really address this. And if there's any school that does not meet the minimum requirement, we may be forced to take some sanctions against them. So we want all schools, both approved and unapproved, to load their digital data, their basic data into the digital platform of the Ministry of Education, so that we can use that one for planning purposes and monitoring purposes. And recently, the Federal Ministry of Education require all schools in the state, in all states of the Federation, to upload their data. And we are having some difficulties with our private schools here. They have refused to upload the data, and we received a letter from the Federal Ministry of Education about a week or so ago.
Prof, before we will delve into all of that,
yes,
beyond documentation,
yes,
what other standard regulatory procedure in place with preference to academics, infrastructures, and student welfare?
Yes, thank you. We have a minimum requirement for concerning teaching staff. Yes, for any school to legally operate, there is a number of requirements. Number one is the teaching staff. There must be qualified teachers. The environment, the school environment, teaching and learning environment must meet the minimum standard. There must be buildings, there must be structures, yes, there must be sanitation, so that the students will be in safe environment, and so on and so forth. In fact, for schools to be approved, there must be minimum distance of 1 kilometer apart. Okay. But these days you see schools coming up in every house, some in uncompleted building, and so on and so forth. So we really want to go into this and make sure that we put it up to a level, the standard and the quality that these schools are offering.
No. Okay, in terms of challenges, I believe in the course of trying to ensure compliance and enforcement, your officials will be faced with quite a number of challenges. What are the defining challenges that is actually halting or stopping the progress of these movements?
Thank you very much. Any policy that comes out in our society, people will resist. Okay. So this is one of the major challenges our officers at the Ministry of Education are facing. At times, until you apply sanctions, people will not want to comply. So the resistance is the major one, but we are coming out fully on this, and we are going to sanction any school. For instance, this issue of uploading data into digital platform of Federal Ministry of Education and of Ondo State Ministry of Education is something that we take seriously, and we are going to sanction school. Any school that does not upload its data into the portal of Federal Ministry of Education and State Ministry of Education will be sanctioned. They won't be able to do any business with the Ministry of Education, and they will not be able to register their students. And if they are unapproved school, we will take further action to close them down.
Rather than maybe we should just reason along this line.
Yes.
The word enforcement.
Yes.
Is moving towards like intimidation or trying to force them to do something. So what's the level of engagement in terms of trying with the school now, so that it's not just about enforcement now, but more of embracing compliance?
Thank you. We have met with different stakeholders on this issue. Starting from last year, August, we've been encouraging them that we are partners. We have to work together. We told them the advantages of moving their data into the digital platform. But at times they will agree. Later they will hold their meeting. They will feel that because of tax, it is because of tax, we are asking them to supply their data. But we've told them that it's far, far beyond this. It is good for them. It is good for us. It is good for the society. And tomorrow we have also invited NAPS to a meeting in the Ministry of Education to further engage them. In fact, last December we met with the body, and they all pleaded that we should give time. Then we extended the deadline to 31st of December. They all said that they will comply. But coming to January again, I'm hearing different stories. That is why we have decided to invite them for another meeting. And you know, any in our society, the nature of our society, when you are even trying to help somebody, the person will still resist. And
of course, you will hear different stories.
Yes.
I think I'd like to disagree a bit with Alex. I'm talking about engagement, and then enforcement seen as maybe witch hunts. But then, if you agree with me, enforcement remains the vehicle for compliance.
Yeah.
Up until the recent closure of school in Ondo, in fact, many people feel that the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology is just a paperwork and not taking strong stance when it comes to discipline of erring schools. I remember very well many years ago, the fear of inspectors is the beginning of wisdom. And so, is it that your ministry is afraid of taking strong stance in terms of enforcement to drive compliance, or you are being political?
Thank you very much. We decided to take this route to engage all the stakeholders. I said that since August last year, we've been engaging them, but from January 2026, you've seen our action against St. Leo Nursery and Primary School at Ondo. If we can take that decisive move against that school, there's no private school that we cannot sanction. And I've said that 2026 will be a different year. We will ensure, we will enforce compliance.
The case of St. Louis, to a large extent, became a public nuisance matter, hence the action of the ministry. There are many other infractions that have not become a public nuisance matter.
Yes.
What is the moral fiber, the commitment, and then the determination of your ministry to take decisive actions to ensure quality standards are adhered to?
Yes, thank you. I've told you that we have a comprehensive plan this year to ensure enforcement, to ensure that all private schools, including public schools, they do the right thing. They meet the minimum requirement in terms of their teaching staff, in terms of what they teach the students, and in terms of the environment in which they operate. We are very, very determined on this, and we have repeated it. That is why we have also invited private school owners and NAPS particularly to our meeting tomorrow, and we are going to roll out our decisions to them. The best thing is to comply rather than facing sanctions.
Well, beyond this compliance issue,
yes,
let's also look at some of the things that affect the education sector in Ondo State. I'm more concerned about the issue of free shuttle. I'd like to note the state of that initiative. Are students now required to pay anything? What areas are currently being covered, and what areas are not being covered by this scheme?
Okay, thank you. All the local government areas in Ondo State are covered by these free shuttle services, and the students have been enjoying this. But in major cities, particularly Akure, the students have taken things for granted. They do fight inside the shuttle buses, and a number of reported cases came to the ministry, particularly last year. Students fighting inside the buses and wounding themselves, and we have invited those students to the ministry, and their principals, we invited all of them. We have warned them that if they continue in that kind of behavior, some sanctions will be taken against them, including stopping them from enjoying that service.
How much has been earmarked for your ministry in the 2026 budget?
Okay, the 2026 budget will soon be out officially, but I don't want to speak quote figures off head. Okay. Once the published document is out.
How confident are you that you'll be able to? You know, it's one thing for for government to earmark so billions in the education sector. It's another thing for you to be able to access the monetary value, the budget performance.
Yes.
So what's your confidence in this regard?
Thank you. I believe sufficient funds have been allocated to the ministry for 2026, and we are also determined to ensure that we have access. particularly the areas that where we need to work hard, preparing our documents, documentations, and passing through all the procedures. For instance, we have a lot of school renovation projects in this year, and the documents are almost ready, which I will take for approval. And we are very, very sure that the budget for 2026 for the ministry will be implemented. Yes.
Okay, in view of that, what should we be expecting from your ministry in this 2026?
Yes, thank you. Number one, we should expect that more schools will be covered in terms of renovation, in terms of supply of digital equipment. You know, WIC is planning to move into CBT, computer-based test, for all their exams. And with that, we have to prepare our students to be ready for this exam. So a lot of investment will go into digital education to our students, teaching them, training them, and also supply of equipment. Then renovation of building dilapidated structures in some schools that have not been covered. And in 2026, we are determined to really monitor the operations of schools to ensure that there is full compliance in terms of quality, in terms of operating environment, and in terms of discipline.
What's the stance of your ministry in tackling examination malpractice, especially the full-blown ones that the people have now called miracle centers, when we're dealing with external examinations?
Thank you very much. Examination malpractice is one of the things that happen in the education sector that is too bad, that is very bad, and it is an act of indiscipline. So we are very, very determined. A student who depends on cheating to pass exam will not get to anywhere. You can cheat to pass your WIC, but in the university system, the situation is tight. You can't have room to cheat to pass. In fact, when I was in school, those that cheat, they will cheat to get minimal results. Even in the university system, they will get only pass or third class. Yes, so cheating, it is not a good thing for those that cheat. It is not a good thing for our society. So it's a kind of indiscipline, and on assumption of duty, made it clear to all stakeholders that it's one of the things that I will fight. And one of the ways to fight this is to stop illegal registration for WIC. When you stop illegal registration for
what constitutes illegal registration?
Yes, for a miracle center to register students, it is illegal. And that is why we want to carry out comprehensive documentation of schools in the state. For somebody who has no school to be bringing students for registration, that is illegal registration, and that is very, very fraudulent. And I'm happy the Federal Ministry of Education is also supporting this policy, because a document came last week that says that a student who has not passed to the SS3 should not be allowed to register for WIC.
We do hope that all of these policies will be well implemented, and the education sector in those states and indeed in Nigeria will be better for it. Professor Igbekele Ajibefun, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to
thank you.
Really
thank you very much.
To another level.
Thank you.
We started last week, and then here we are. We do hope that in the coming months we'll still track issues around the education sector. We'll take a break now. When we return, we'll look at the Nigeria's democracy and the rule of law, and then we'll see what exactly is the firmament looking like. We'll be right back, everyone. Please stay with us.
was called the Lioness of Lisabi, a name that roared through the halls of colonial power and echoed in the hearts of women across Africa. Her name is Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, a teacher, activist, feminist, nationalist, and mother to legends. But before the fame, there was fire. Born on October 25, 1900 in Abeokuta, present-day Ogun State, Nigeria. Funmilayo was born Frances Abigail Olufunmilayo Thomas. She came from a family that valued education, and in 1914, she became the first female student at Abeokuta Grammar School. Determined and brilliant, she later traveled to England for further studies, a rare feat for a Nigerian woman at that time. There, she trained as a teacher, absorbing ideas of equality and freedom that would shape her life's mission. On returning to Nigeria in the 1920s, she married Reverend Israel Ransome Kuti, a clergyman and educator. Together, they worked to uplift their community through education. But Funmilayo was not content with just teaching. She saw how colonial rule and traditional structures oppressed Nigerian women, and she decided to act. In 1947, she founded the Abeokuta Women's Union, one of Africa's most powerful grassroots women movements. The group fought against unfair taxation and the corrupt practices of the Alake, the traditional ruler of Abeokuta. Thousands of women led by Funmilayo marched in protest. They sang, they chanted, they occupied, and eventually they won. The Alake was forced to abdicate. Funmilayo Ransome Kuti was fearless. She was one of the few Nigerian women to drive a car, to travel widely, and to speak truth to power. Her activism didn't stop in Abeokuta. She was a founding member of the Nigerian Union of Teachers, a member of the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroon's NCNC. And in 1953, she became the first Nigerian woman to visit the Soviet Union, a move that earned her the label communist sympathizer by British authorities. But she wasn't deterred. In fact, she was emboldened. In her later years, she focused on broader issues: education, voting rights, women participation in politics. She advocated for the inclusion of women in leadership and resisted Nigeria's slide into authoritarianism. She raised 4 children, including Fela Anikulapo Kuti, the legendary Afrobeat pioneer, instilling in them the spirit of resistance and truth. But tragedy would eventually come. In 1977, during a brutal military raid on Fela's compound, known as Kalakuta Republic, Funmilayo was thrown from his second-story window by soldiers. She never recovered from the injuries, and on April 13th, 1978, she passed away. Funmilayo Ransome Kuti was more than a mother, more than a teacher. She was a symbol of courage, of resistance, of dignity. She paved the path so Nigerian women could walk tall, speak freely, and fight for justice. Her legacy lives in every classroom, every protest, every woman who dares to say enough is enough. This was the story of Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti, the lioness of listening, a voice that cannot be silenced, a spirit that lives on. Chief Michael Adekunle Ajashin, born November 28, 1908, was a distinguished Nigerian educator, politician and statesman renowned for his integrity, commitment to democracy, and
Thank you very much, everyone, for still being with us on the Outlook. And today, as I did say, it's now time to take the conversation to the democratic level, talking about democracy and the rule of law. And joining us on this conversation via Zoom is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Dr. Remi Olatubora. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Sunday. Thanks for having me.
Very well. Now let's start this. Let me say Happy New Year. I think it's the first time we're talking this year.
Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to all the audience of Osrc, our great television station.
All right. Let's start this way. The Nigerian democracy to my mind and to many Nigerians' mind, should no longer be termed nascent democracy, especially looking at how far we've come, although some still feel that we are still just trying to come alive. But would you say that one of the very key pillars of the rule of law, equality before the law, has been our experience since our democratic journey began?
Well, I think we should start with the definition of terms in your topic. The topic is Nigeria's democracy and the rule of law. And we should know for the advantage of the audience, we should know the basic elements of what we have put in our title. What's democracy? And what are the basic elements of democracy? And then rule of law. And what are the basic elements of rule of law? And by then, the audience will be able to flow with us.
Okay.
Basically, when we talk about democracy, we are talking of popular sovereignty. That is, the government and the constitution evolve from the will of the people. Now, one other constituent element of democracy is rule of law. Rule of law, and then the third one is human rights protection. Number 4, free and fair election. Number 5, citizen participation in governance. Number 6, separation of powers. And number 7, political tolerance. Number 8, independent media. Number 9, independent judiciary. And then the multi-party system. The second concept you mentioned in your topic is rule of law. You will find that in my analysis of the constituent element of democracy, rule of law is number 2. And then what is rule of law? Because it involves emphasis under your topic, the supremacy of the law, ensuring that power of government is limited, equality before fair, accessible, and transparent legal system, and then access to impartial justice, and then of course accountable government, open government, legal certainty, that is law clear, publicized, stable, and predictable. So these are the elements of democracy, and then of course the rule of law. And that's why Abraham Lincoln defined democracy as a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So, can we say that democracy in Nigeria has been able to establish all of these constituent elements? Or can we say in Nigeria we have imputed all of these constituent elements of democracy into our system? My answer would be no, unfortunately. My answer would be no. Do we really have a fair election that we say that government at every level arose from the will of the people? Now, year in, year out, in the last 26 years, after elections, we go to the judges to decide on who will be our leader in virtually all elective positions. And you find that the judicial outcome are most times inconsistent with what the people actually decided at the polls. So we have not, in practice, been able to really achieve that particular element of democracy.
Let's see.
And then we talk about
just for let's see, you have brought to the fore many concepts that are very critical to this conversation. Let's see them one by each. I'm interested in the fact that you've talked about the supremacy of the courts rather than the supremacy of the ballots in determining in our recruitment process of leadership if I get you correctly. And so, who do we place the culpability on his laps? The legal practitioners that argue for and against proponents and opponents in the temple of justice, or the frailty of our electoral process? What exactly is the core of the problem there?
I think if we have a free election, if we have a functional electoral commission, there will be no resort to court. If the outcome of elections are exactly what the people themselves decided at the polls, there will be no resort to election. You remember a time in this country when I think it was the Bangladesh regime that empowered a system of governance in which people will go out and queue behind who they support. You know, there was element of transparency. I think they call it option A4. During the transition period, you go to the polling booth, and then candidates will stand, each one with his poster or banner, and then if you are a Mr. A, you queue behind him or in front of him. If you are a Mr. B, you queue in front of him, Mr. C, and openly they count. You recall that when that particular methodology was adopted, there were no cases that were filed in the legal tribunal, because it was why was it like that? Because the system was transparent, open, transparent, participatory. But you see, the ballot system that we are using at the moment, we have not been able to really work on it the way that advanced democracy has been able to perfect that particular methodology and been able to empower governments that we want to say is involved from the will of the people. What am I saying is that the electoral law as it is at the moment required to be reformed. The Independent National Electoral Commission itself has to be reformed. I happen to be part of the Jonathan Confab. One of the recommendations of Jonathan's Confab regarding electoral reform in this country was that we should unbundle INEC.
Okay.
We should have an agency that will monitor, register and monitor the activities of political parties. We should have an agency whose responsibility is strictly to conduct elections. And we should have an agency with prosecutorial powers on electoral offences. That was the recommendation, and I must also inform you that a previous panel headed by late Justice Uwais, former Chief Justice of Nigeria, also came to the same conclusion in each recommendations that there was a need to unbundle INEC. INEC as we have it today is overstretched. Register political party, control formation of political party, regulate members of campaign, etc. And then go ahead to conduct election, and then also people saddled with problem of post-election legal disputes. So we have a system that is very unwieldy. And so I recommend that we should go back to the archives and bring out the recommendations of the panels that have been established in this country to look at electoral reform.
Dr. Latibora, let's take the issues very quickly because of time. Yes, Alex.
You were talking about unbundling INEC. Does that suggest that we should now remove from the prerogative of Mr. President the appointment of INEC boss? We should remove.
I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
That mic is not working properly.
All right, he's saying whether or not we should push for a tinker with the prerogative powers of Mr. President to appoint INEC leadership.
Would that add credibility to our election?
Of course, any reform that can be carried out to ensure that the electoral commission is truly independent, not in name, but independent as an institution, will be a welcome development.
No, okay.
We should be able to insulate that particular institution from the vagaries of political powers, particularly from the executive arm. And so we should have a reform in our law that will make the appointments of the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission comparable to the appointment of judges.
Okay.
Comparable to the appointment, and then that office itself should have certain immunity in such a way that whoever occupies the office will be able to strictly conduct the affair of the institution according to law and without any fear of any political repercussion, particularly from the executives. So if we are able to insulate that particular institution from the vagaries of executive powers, and then of course you should be sure that that institution will improve on its present position in the conduct of election.
Okay, thank you, sir.
That's the perspective of the matter.
Integrity of our ballot. Are you suggesting that the secret ballot system is actually the problem, or in that case, should we be looking for technology to actually advance our elections so that it can be made credible? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think we have technology that is comparable to the technology that is used in other countries. In other countries that have been able to overcome the problem of election all over the world. We have the BVAS machine. The BVAS machine is an advanced technology. You know, it verifies you as the voter to know whether you are actually a registered voter in a particular unit when you present yourselves. It authenticates your voter's ID card, and then of course you are then given the ballot paper, and then the machine also transmits not only the result of the election from the polling units, but even the number of voters accredited to INEC result portal, you know, the one we call IF. That system as it is, if we are able to reform the law such as we make that transmission of the result to the IF compulsory, and then of course to reform the law also in such a way that the courts in the event of post-election litigation will not be able to rubbish electronic evidence as it's being currently done. Then we will have achieved the mileage. What happened in court today is, even when results are transmitted from polling units to the INEC result storage portal, the court still give preference to the manual result from the polling units that are susceptible to manipulation between the polling unit and even the collation center. So going forward, we must have a system that will recognize the inputs or the contribution of technology into our electoral process in such a way that the electronic copy transmitted will have preference over the hard copy of the result that is susceptible to manipulation between the polling unit and then the collation center. What we have at the moment is situations where between polling unit and collation center results the outcome of election are manipulated, and as it is at the moment, the courts are saying transmission of result to INEC does not dispense with collation of election with manual results. That is exactly the problem. If you have a system that would transmit the results, automatically collect it and ensure that it is credible. And ensure that it is credible, because we also know that electronic or digital documents are susceptible to hacking and then some other electronic manipulation. If you have a system that is foolproof, end-to-end encryption should be brought into that particular aspect of technology. Such that whatever is verified from INEC result portal is credible and acceptable.
Well, Dr. Latimer, election is not the only issue in our democratic experience.
So before we move out of election,
all right.
Dr. Latubora, I would like you to shed light on this. You know, I believe you are very conversant with election litigations in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, you've written volumes to that effect. Why is it so difficult to actually upturn presidential elections in Nigeria? Why is it that difficult? Is it now because it's more looking like when people petition or challenge presidential election in Nigeria, it's more looking like a yearly or election cycle academic exercise. Why is it so difficult? Maybe you would like to shed light on that.
Well, you see, the point is I've been involved in election litigation in this country for quite a while, and I've done a lot of literature on election and electoral matter in this country. I want to tell you that except the ground of the challenge of presidential election is limited to the issue of disqualification of the candidate that is declared. It is going to be very difficult for you within the time frame that is allowed for a petitioner to prove his case under the current law. It will be difficult for you to overturn the presidential election. What do I mean? The law requires you to bring a witness from each polling unit where the election is conducted, when you complain against. For example, if you complain against election in 5,000 polling units, which is less than the number of polling units in 2 states. If you contest against the election with 5,000 polling units, the law as it is today requires you to bring 5,000 witnesses. Each of them will tender the result and other documents for election in that particular polling unit and give evidence. And then if each of every respondent, after he has given his evidence, which is usually in form of written statement or notes, every of the respondents, INEC, the lawyer to INEC, the lawyer to the political party, the lawyer to the candidate, each of them will cross-examine that particular witness. The maximum you can do in a day, the maximum that I have seen achievable in a day in any election petition in the last 25 years that I have been involved in it, is 10. And so, the law as it is at the moment requires that the presidential election petition must be concluded within 6 weeks. So, if you take 10, the maximum you can do in a week is 70. So, that will be 70 times 6. That is still very insignificant if we are challenging election in just less than 2 states out of 36 states of the federation. So the law as it is at the moment needs a lot of reform. Now, we have to reform, for example, our law of evidence. That's my perspective on this matter, and I've done a number of general articles on it. We should reform our law of evidence as it relates to election litigation. Particularly in area of what they call documentary hearsay, we should tinker with the law. That law that specify that you cannot just tender a document even when the complaint, the fraud or the miscalculation you are complaining about is apparent on the face of the document, and you still need to support that document.
Oh, fortunately, I think the network is giving us a challenge there. Dr. Emiola Tubora, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, has been speaking on the need to think out with the law of evidence.
Yes,
all right, it's good.
Yes, I will now see that the total vote cast is 300. That document tells a lie against itself. So, if you right now require me to call a witness, what is the witness coming to say?
So what you have said about election prosecution, and I do understand that you agree with me, that's not the only thing that has to do with our democracy in Nigeria. Let's quickly look at the issue of public officers' accountability, especially the one we now call corruption and corrupt practices. How well have we been able to deal with these matters in such a way that the law reigns supreme in prosecution of alleged corruption cases in Nigeria, vis-a-vis allegations of political biases? In fact, someone did jokingly say that once you go to a ruling party, your sins are forgiven. How do we deal with this issue in the context of the supremacy of the law?
Well, let me tell you.
Well, the network seems to be giving us an issue there. We've been looking at the issue of the supremacy of the law and how our democratic practice is getting enhanced or otherwise through the instrumentality of actions and inactions of those who have been saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that the things we do are done properly and in order. I think one very valid issue that Dr. Emiola Tubora, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, has been able to look into is the fact that we need to tinker with our law of evidence if indeed we want to allow the law to really be what it is, and then we're able to look at how well we'll be able to get democracy on course. I think there was a problem with the network. Can you please take your response again on the issue of anti-corruption in Nigeria? Can we have your response again?
Okay, what I mean is that at the moment, I think we should give kudos to the present administration under President Bola Tinubu. And I want to say that I'm a practitioner who goes to court for EFCC and who also defend against EFCC in some other cases. And if you look at the cost list, particularly in the Federal High Court here in Abuja, and I think the same will be the case in some other Federal High Courts in the states, you will find the name of high-profile former political office holders in PDP and in APC. High-profile individuals, I don't want to mention them in this discussion, who are currently facing criminal charges in the court. And I think that going forward, we should not only rely on prosecution of people for crime or fraud. We should make committing the crime more difficult by enhancing our system of financial administration in a way that it will be difficult for an individual to handle cash or to have illicit money transferred to his accounts without any red flag being raised. Many countries that have been able to have very low corruption index have been able to use leverage of technology to run government to ensure. Now we are trying, the system is coming up, payment that you could make in the past with cash and the treasury it. But we still have a long way to go, particularly corruption related to contract awards.
Okay, corruption relating to contract award, and then the issue of strengthening technology in ensuring that we make corruption less attractive. I think that's the word. But to that extent, Leonard Sik is talking about making...
Even by cash. We should not only rely on prosecution after the offense has been committed.
Okay.
We should leverage on technology in governance, and then in government financing.
You're talking about strengthening institutions far above the strength and powers of individuals managing those institutions. I think that's your point, right?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That, for example, you strengthen the institution by also leveraging on technology. Technology will enable you to do a lot of things. Technology will enable you to establish a transparent and accountable system. Technology will enable you to avoid the situation where an individual can just dip inside into the treasury and take money. In a system that have the low corruption index, they're able to achieve that because they leverage on technology and they ensure that the system is accountable and transparent, and such that if there's anything that goes wrong with public financing or public fund, the red flag. The system that we have in Nigeria at the moment is still work in progress, and I think we should continue to devote attention to our payment system to ensure that we do not have loose funds running into private pockets.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Olatubora, for that recommendation. And now let us talk a little on the separation of powers. Like you rightly said, that one of the pillars of democracy is separation of powers. Now, looking at the judiciary, from your own professional point of view, can you say that the judiciary is independent? Because we know we have three arms of government, and the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, which are there to do the check and balances. Can we really say that the judiciary is independent, or probably interdependent, or dependent on the executive? What's your take on that?
Well, as it is at the moment, independence of the judiciary in Nigeria is work in progress. Several efforts have been made. Several constitutional reforms have been carried out to ensure that the judiciary becomes autonomous. And not only the judiciary, also the legislature also become autonomous of the executive. But the implementation, particularly at the subnational level, has been very, very difficult. Many governors have not been able to wholeheartedly ensure that the judiciary is independent. They are still holding on to their funds. He who gets the piper dictates the tune. If the CJ of a state has to dance to the tune of the music played by the governor before he can get fund to meet basic needs of the courts, you cannot in that kind of atmosphere expect a truly independent judiciary.
Well, because of our time, what will be your final recommendations in terms of enhancing democratic practice through the rule of law?
Well, my recommendation is that first, the electorate themselves should come to the realization that they have the most critical role to play. If there's going to be change in this country, it is the electorate themselves that can bring about the change. There was a time in this country when people will gather around and look for an individual with good track record to run for political offices. In Ondo State, for example, in the Second Republic, the system looked out for somebody like Governor Adachi retired principal. He wasn't a rich man to become a governor. In 1999, before the election, Adekunle became the governor of Ondo State. As a retired principal of a school, he had no money. As a matter of fact, Baba had no functional car when he contested to be the governor of Ondo State. But over the years, our system has gone down such that people of that category again cannot aspire to public offices, whether at the local government level, at the state level, or at the national level. You have to have what people now call war chest. And war chest means billions of naira. It shouldn't be. I contested to be member of the State House of Assembly when I had virtually nothing on me. The entire budget with which I used to contest to become member of the State House of Assembly in 1999 was less than 25,000 naira. That included money for the form, money for one or two issues that were statutory. Nobody collected money from me at the polling unit. Today, the electorate will insist on taking 10,000 or 20,000 as the case may be before casting their votes. So if there's going to be a change in our democratic system in this country, it will start from the electorate themselves. Okay. And the electorate are now at the receiving end of the decision they took some years ago. So preparing for the next round of election, the electorate must know that I have the power to decide on the government that would bring drastic change to the situation that we have at the moment.
That's very instructive recommendation, I must say. Very, very instructive, especially because it has to do with who feels the pain more when the whole thing gets down. Dr. Olatubora again, thank you very much for your time on AM today. Of course, it's always a delight talking to you from the days of the national conference and also up until now. Thank you for being a leading light in the legal profession. God bless you so much. Thank you for your time on sharing your perspectives with us on this matter.
Thank you very much for having me, and then my greetings to your GM and the chairman of the board of Osrc.
Thank you very much.
And to the entire crew of Osrc.
We're grateful for your kind words.
Thanks for your time, sir.
All right, everyone, it's been an interesting moment looking at issues having to do with the development of Nigeria and indeed on those states. On this edition of AM Today, we've talked about the development of the education sector in those states, and then we've also looked at the issue of democracy and the rule of law. Of course, we had Professor Igbekele Ajibefun as our first resource person talking about education, and also now Dr. Remi Olatubora, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, talking about the rule of law and democracy. We thank you so much for being a part of it, everyone. From my colleague, Alex Adejoye.
Yeah, rightly you said. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll return next week with another exciting edition. But don't forget to join the conversation on all our social media platforms with the handles scrolling on the screen. We'll see you next week then. Alex Adejoye is my name.
And Sunday Kolawole is my name. Wishing you a very productive day. Good morning.